the constraints of time, what do you feel about what time is? What do you think time is, Tom?
Well, I'll quote Einstein: a stubbornly persistent illusion. There is no actual time. You can't grab time and make a piece of art out of it or anything like that. It's one of those things that if you tried to describe it to someone, what would you tell them? What is time?
Well, that's why in Einsteinian thought, time and space were married.
Theoretically.
Well, Einstein's teacher said to him when he was very, very just before he graduated, that if somebody did not do something to bring space into the foreground, that he thought it would disappear into the background noise of all the other pursuits of physics. And that really got Einstein thinking of marrying space-time and putting them together as one thing. Mm-hmm. Now, when Buddhists thought, time is being, and so time is not anything to do with an external element, but you can't say time doesn't exist. It does exist as an internal element, and every being is experiencing a different time flow. Mm-hmm. So the time being of the tree, and the time being of the bird, and the time being of the rock are three different time beings.
Which is what Einstein said. Relative.
No, in Einsteinian,
time is relative to the observer.
Yeah, but in Einsteinian physics, it's relative to spaces. He wasn't thinking of those spaces in individual spaces. He was talking space in general. So you would have to get up to the speed of light before time becomes, your relationship to it would really start to change. Mm-hmm. That's a very different definition of time than what I'm talking about. Because I'm talking about time as an internal flow mechanism. In physics, time, they call it the arrow of time. And in Einsteinian physics, the math goes, in order for the math to work, it has to go both ways. So there's a world that's going backwards that parallels all our world in order for the Einsteinian math to work. And I'm not talking about that. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about being time, which is that each time flow is relative to that being. It has nothing to do with the field of space that surrounds the being. Mm-hmm. It's internal.
Sure.
So if time is an internal mechanism, then it does not exist as an external phenomenon.
No. And nor does space. Because if there is no separation, how would you define space? If it's all consciousness, there is no space. It's just what is.
Well, I don't think we can necessarily define consciousness. Consciousness is a very relative term. I know we have very specific definitions of consciousness, but that doesn't mean that they are complete. A lot of our idea of consciousness is tied into what we think of as life, and even then, there's a number of scientists who don't feel plants have the same consciousness that animals have.
Oh, yeah. I'm not referring to individual consciousness. All that is. Reality. The suchness.
Don't you think that can be like a sweeping generalization? Yeah. Okay, but it's like, so you
Godhead or Buddha mind or, the universal or whatever it is, the placeholder that you want to put on it. But it's that space where time and space are no longer relevant. Which is actually reality, but we choose to compartmentalize in some sort of a linear fashion, but I don't think it's necessary.
Well, functionality seems to have some need for linear dynamics, and
it's led us to such a great place. Honestly. I mean, literally the constraints or whatever are holding us back, and time is one of those constraints. And that spatial thing, this is your space. You can only occupy this space. When in fact there is no your space to occupy. Again, within the eternal all that is, the spatial thing, it just goes right out the window. And if we ever saw ourselves as beings in that existence, the whole dynamics of our existence would change.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And
but it still comes down to individually having that experience.
Yes.
It's like, I can't
It's
give
what the
that
Bodhisattva
experience. We could, what's that?
It's what the Bodhisattva sought. When all of humanity is enlightened, when all of humanity understands the truth of their nature, and that it's not theirs. That
Yeah,
it is just
yeah,
nature.
I would definitely agree with that.
They've been suicidal.
But see,
sure.
for so many people, those are just abstract concepts and ideas, and when it comes down to suffering and inner turmoil or external turmoil, like the situation goes to hell, those ideas as a concept, they don't help any, and that's where belief comes in, because there's some element of faith comforts us, and I think faith is a double-edged sword, and it can be dangerous, but it can also be a great tool. It can be a great way of helping us navigate through a storm. Maybe if it's not blind faith, but like questioned faith. And I guess that really brings it down. The power is always in the question. It's not in the answer, and we live in a system that really just values the answer. Our system doesn't really appreciate the question. It sees the question as a means to an end.
Yeah.
And then that raises another interesting subject, which that we live in a culture that sees everything as a means to an end. Even God is a means to an end, getting to heaven. Being good, that's a means to an end, so we can get to heaven. Money is a means to an end. All these different ways are ways of us getting to an end. And the essence of what you're saying and what many spiritual teachings say is that there is no end
But
to
was
get
the beginning? So what is the end?
And well, that's
And
an
I think
interesting.
it simplifies it when people are encouraged to realize truth for what it is and that they are it. It takes away that questioning. It takes away that it literally gives you the impetus to understand that you are that truth, and there is nothing that is really actually required of you to do that. You don't have to try to get a means to an end, because you are both. That means and the end, because it never had a beginning. And that continuation of it takes away that impetus, that story that we overlay onto truth, onto reality, that says you must be, something, you must achieve something, you must do this or do that, when in fact the greatest achievement that any of us can do is to realize that we already are that.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
The story gets in the way of the luxury of living in truth. That is to me, it's the simplest and the most beneficial way for humanity to actually survive. If we don't, we won't. When we keep this separation, this striving, this needing to achieve something that is totally just fictitious, it's a story. There's nothing accomplished through the passionate, your life's work, whatever it is. You look back and you go, oh well, whatever. It's just another ripple in consciousness that has no distinction whatsoever. When we realize that, there's a lot of pressure that is removed from us. That striving, that whole need, that being able to put people down for not being enough, when in fact there's no way for them not to be enough. They don't have a choice in the matter. They are all that is, along with everyone else. The truth, the simplest expression of that, is to understand that there is no striving for anything. You're already it. The individual doesn't have to do a thing. You can still go about all the things you've ever done, but now the perception, the perspective you're coming from is that you know that you already are all that. It doesn't mean we don't make advancements. I think if we make advancements at astronomical speed, if we understood this, if we didn't have to fight, if we didn't have the competition that is completely unnecessary and actually achieves nothing but holding us back by putting someone below or someone beneath. We rise above when we leave that behind.
I completely agree, but that's so utopic. I mean,
what's wrong with Utopia? Let's go there. Come on. Hey, give peace a chance. No, Utopia. We need it.
I completely agree.
Let's start the campaign right now. Who says we can't achieve it? Why do we always poo-poo the notion that we can't live in a utopic society? We're going to need to, or otherwise we are going to perish as a species. Which is fine, because consciousness doesn't give a shit if we're here or not.
Well, that's completely true.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it's only us that gives a shit.
That's yeah. I mean, who can argue with that? I mean, there's absolutely nothing that I would say that I would disagree with about that. I do, yeah. I mean, who am I going to be, the guy who says there's no Santa Claus right now? There's no Utopia? Not me.
I mean,
but wait. What if everything is Utopia now?
Oh, it is perfection. Always.
So Utopia is a
it's this
possible
and
apocalypse?
That. Sure. Yeah. 100 babies in a bus getting run over by a train? Yes. I mean, you can't distinguish because, again, these are just ripples in consciousness. And we know that consciousness, all that is, shows up as perfection all the time. Because it shows up. You can't argue with the fact that it is. You can, and we do all the time. But it doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah, that's the Zen smack.
We just keep going on.
That's that whole Zen smack.
Yeah.
There is no, it's like, here I am.
Yeah.
Reality. This is it.
Yeah, but why not a utopic? Why can't we go for Utopia? Why can't we actually try to save ourselves from ourselves? Just for a change. Try something new. Shoot for the moon.
Well, from Utopia. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like us and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified for when we post new videos. We love comments and questions, so we deeply encourage that. Also, we just started a Patreon page where you can become a monthly subscriber to view special videos. Remember, stay in the moment.